All right, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're jumping right into a premise extracted from our source text that is, honestly, just completely mind-bending. We're not looking at the Quran as some ancient history book or just a collection of disconnected stories. No, we're exploring its architecture as a living, biological, and physical structure. Basically, an eternal memory tesseract.
Okay, let's dive right into this. When we say tesseract or topological mapping here, we're talking about a dynamic, self-reading blueprint. The narratives inside aren't just linear events locked away in the past, they're actually interacting physical forces. The text maps our human experiences of loss and restoration through this incredibly precise quantum and biological architecture. It's like an operating manual that is constantly computing.
So here's our structural roadmap for today. We'll start with the living book chromosome, move into the double helix topology, explore the 1912 centromere grip, the zujaja protective membrane, the acoustic boundary, and finally, the reader's final orbit.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, the living book chromosome.
The big overarching idea here is that the text operates as a unified living field of DNA. We look at the exact wording of the source itself. Verse 39:23 explicitly calls the text a consistent book wherein is reiteration. It's describing its own structure as paired, recursive, and fractal. This isn't just some clever metaphor we're imposing, it's the topological response declared by the text itself. That shivering of the skin it mentions, that's literally a biological resonance reacting to this massive recursive matrix.
Moving right along to Section 2, the double helix topology. So how is this textual DNA actually built? Well, the scripture functions as a living double helix made up of 7 distinct base pairs. On the left side, we've got the strand of loss and trial. Think of Dawud and his son, Adam's descent, or Yusuf being betrayed by his brothers. Then on the right side, we have the complementary strand of restoration, Solomon and his queen, Esau with Miriam, Yusuf finally reunited with Yaqub. These are complementary pairs, holding the truth together through their exact orientation.
Seeing these two parallel strands naturally begs a pretty massive question. How exactly do we switch from the strand of trial over to the strand of the answer? What's the mathematical and topological phase shift mechanism that actually converts our loss into restoration?
The switch happens through very specific crossover points. Figures like Musa, Yusuf, and Ibrahim, they appear on both strands. They basically act as topological bridges. Musa activates submission at the mountain. Yusuf maintains the pure memory of truth down in the well. Ibrahim physically pushes rightward to escape the fire on the left. They show us, the reader, exactly where that phase shift occurs, converting the loss of the left strand into the restoration of the right.
Which brings us to Section 3, the 1912 centromere grip.
But here's the thing. 2 strands of DNA will just drift apart without an anchor, right? In biology, a centromere is that constricted region holding chromatids tightly together. Topologically, Rahman sits right at the center as this binding grip, preventing the double helix of the text from tearing apart into scattered, dead historical stories. Without this grip, the whole system just fragments.
And the exact coordinate for this centromere in the text? It's verse 19:12, O Yahya, take the book with strength. This is the precise activation voltage, or that centromere grip we're talking about. It's the absolute command that locks the strand of trial and the strand of restoration together. It demands a really active, forceful grasp of the book to hold the entire genetic structure in place.
Without this grip, we totally misread the data. Verse 11:110 points out that people differed upon the scripture because they only read it externally, represented by Adam, formed of clay. They completely missed the internal, spiritual reading, represented by Isa, formed of spirit. Over at verse 359, the divine command kun, which means be, is written out for both, 1 kun for clay, 1 kun for spirit. Adam opens the external phase, Isa opens the internal phase. You need that grip to hold both polarities together at the exact same time.
All right, Section 4, the zujaja protective membrane.
So once you have this internal reading, it absolutely must be protected. This pure genetic material is shielded by what the text calls the mother chain. These incredible female figures function as the zujaja, the protective glass. Miriam protects the light against her own people's accusations. Asiyah protects it literally inside the enemy walls of Pharaoh. Hagar protects it out in the harsh wilderness with no walls at all. These are the 3 layers of darkness, a triune gate repeating the exact same protective placenta membrane at every single scale. This perfectly maps to the famous light verse, 24:35. It says the oil would almost glow even untouched by fire. Think about that. The light inside the membrane is pre-luminous. It doesn't need an external spark or worldly validation to shine. The glass, or the womb of these remarkable women, is just the boundary that protects what is already inherently lit. It directs the light, it certainly doesn't invent it.
Let's look at Section 5, the acoustic boundary. So how does this protected internal light actually communicate with the outside world? It's a fascinating contrast. On one side we have the cradle speech of Isa, permitted speech under a divine seal used to defend his mother. Beautiful, soulful sound. On the other side we have the golden calf's voice, what the text calls khuar. This is unsealed noise. It's an unauthorized sound demanding external worship, completely devoid of a soul.
See, when the human ego senses the immense power of that internal light, but refuses to actually submit to it, it panics. It builds an external possessible idol instead. This is exactly why the verse asks, do you call upon Baal and leave the best of creators? The ego desperately wants something loud, external, and tangible, like a golden calf. It totally rejects the quiet, hidden lamp of the cradle because it can't own it.
Finally, we reach Section 6, the reader's final orbit.
It is time to place ourselves directly into the center of this equation. The source material maps all of this cosmologically. The sun represents the messenger function, Isa, self-luminous by permission. The moon represents the believer, Musa, reflective, waxing, and waning through endless trials. But the earth? The earth represents the grounded slave, Ahmed. It is the absolute heaviest position because it has mass. Earth is the exact coordinate where this entire cosmic circuit finally closes.
But grounding that light on Earth is definitely not free. We trace this through the sacrifice axis. At verse 2169, the fire of destruction is neutralized and the slave passes through safely, completely unburned. But by verse 37:107, we hit the station of the ransom, where the great sacrifice is actually paid. Transmitting pure light through the hostile ground of the material world always exacts a price. The bill always comes due.
So the crucial takeaway here is this. The ultimate goal of interacting with this structure is to reach verse 6:163, I am the first of the Muslims. This is the slave position. You own nothing. You claim absolutely no kingdom. You simply receive the light of the sun and the reflection of the moon, and you ground them. You hold both the fire of the trial and the pure light of the truth.
To maintain this perfect orbit, the text gives us a final protocol. Step 1. Enter the state of Solomon's kingdom. Total womb state submission. Step 2. Channel Dawud's might. Use your righteousness to guard the boundary, not to inflate your ego. And step 3. Absolutely avoid Pharaoh's state, where the ego forgets it's just a guardian, breaches those 3 layers to possess the light, and ultimately collapses into a dead mass without an orbit.
We're going to leave you with this final thought. This structural blueprint demands an operator. So ask yourself, are you simply reading this text as a passive observer wandering through some historical museum, or are you ready to take that centromere grip with strength, step into the Earth position, and become the active execution node of the circuit? The book chromosome is alive. The rest is entirely up to the reader. Thanks for joining us on this explainer, and keep exploring.